Hi, so my name is Tiyi, and this is a video in response to a recurring discourse on social media, which has been about Black or Afro-descendant parents not wanting their children to be in spaces where they are underrepresented or where there are not a lot of other Black children. So I wanted to share my experience as a young Black woman who grew up in many times environments where I was the only or one of the only Black or Afro-descendant children. So I grew up in France, in Paris, but also across Asia, in Japan and in Bhutan, also in the UK, also in, am I missing something? Oh, the Solomon Islands. And so throughout my experiences in these different countries, there were many times where, based on my academic level or based on my hobbies and extracurricular activities, I was one of the only or the only Black child present. And to be honest, I couldn't clearly define you the moment where I realized that I was different or that I was one of the few in those cases. I think it came clearly more from other children than even from adults in my life. I think I was grateful enough or lucky enough that I was able to be in a lot of spaces that were fairly diverse, at least in France and in the United Kingdom, having lived in Birmingham, which is known to be one of the most diverse areas. But when it came to certain specific activities, for example, in France, I joined what is called the classe européenne, where you go into a separate class and have advanced language classes for whatever language you choose. So I was in advanced Spanish. And whenever I had joined that class, immediately, the previous year I was in a class that was very diverse, so there were a lot of Black kids, African kids, Arab kids, and then the next year completely changed. As soon as I went into that specific program, my class was mostly of white European kids and some mixed children. So that was one of the experiences that I had. And that year, I remember I also started, that previous year I had started rowing, which is a sport that is quite niche, I would say. And one of the first reactions that I had gotten from one of my classmates at the time, when I was in the very diverse class that is, oh, you always do like white people stuff. And I had found that so interesting and strange because I never considered a competitive sport could be attributed to race. So I never thought about it that way. And then a few months later, I remember one of the assistant coaches had came up to me and he was like, oh, I'm so shocked and surprised because you're the only Black kid on the team, and it's very cool to have you on the team, to have some diversity. And I remember he had said it in a way where you could tell that he wasn't comfortable saying it. He wasn't comfortable addressing my race, but he wanted to still kind of congratulate me or make it known that he was happy and he was embracing of my difference. And that was interesting as well, because part of me felt like it was an uncomfortable conversation to have. And at the same time, I was happy because I didn't feel like I was treated any different on the team. And I think that's the key thing here. I think a lot of parents are afraid that being one of the only Black children in these academic or extracurricular spaces will lead to their children being discriminated against. In my case, I would say that's not necessary. There's not necessarily a correlation there. I've been discriminated in places that were extremely diverse, as I have been treated extremely well in places that were super homogeneous. So I could say my rowing team was one of them. I could say the European advanced class that I was in was one of them where I was treated very well. I was even class president. When I moved to Japan, it was the same. I would say there was an element of shock because I'm not only a foreigner, but I'm Black and I didn't speak the language when I first moved to Japan. So there was a big year of adaptation. But by the time I left Japan, I would say that the positive experiences definitely outweighed the bad experiences. And I would even go as far as to say that I had more negative experiences due to my race in France, which is generally considered to be a more diverse country than Japan. And so I say all that to say that although it is a valid concern to have as a parent, I think it's more important how you see individually the experiences impacting your child's happiness in terms of the environment than is your child going to look around the room and see people that look like them. I think I have a more positive impact from being around people and educators that genuinely cared about me and wanted me to grow and succeed than just being in rooms where I had people from the same culture. So I would say that's my take on that. Hope it makes sense.